So this video is going to be a combination of two things. One, it's going to be a highlight of the 10 different tools we looked at during our session, just to give you an overview of what all is in there in case you didn't get a chance to look at them all. It's also going to be just one way to think about doing asynchronous discussions and how to integrate those into your class and make them a little more engaging. So by that I mean I'm actually going to take the discussion group posts that we had and I'm going to use those as kind of the basis for this video. So if you recall, or you weren't there, we had individual teams go and research each one of these different tools. Then we asked folks to write up some notes about them in our discussion group. So you can think of this like you would for if you're using Canvas or Moodle or D2L, you have students go and research something and then post it in their discussion board. And then I'm going to basically use those as summary, as talking points for what I'm about to deliver, which means that students have a sense of like what they're posting is going to get read, going to get consumed, and it's going to get shared with other students. So again, leveraging this jigsaw technique, this sort of leveraging their desire to perform well in front of peers. So let's dive in. We're first going to start with GrimKit here. So GrimKit was the first tool, and GrimKit, if we look at the summary here, Heidi Neck wrote up that the GrimKit is an interactive quiz. They offer virtual prizes. Students can create their own games, and she wondered about having an elementary school feel. So just a quick summary so you can get a sense of what GrimKit is. This will show up on students' phone. You create a GrimKit. It's a little quiz. It'll show up on their phone. Which is the sixth planet from the sun? I don't actually know. So I'm going to pick, I don't know, Saturn. Oh, I happen to get it right. So in this case, I get $1. So I get some virtual currency for that. And what I can do with this money is really interesting. Now I have the option to buy basically some power-ups. I can get more money per question. If I have 10 of these virtual dollars, I can get more money per question. I can buy myself a streak bonus. That if I get multiple questions in a row, I'll get more money. I can get some other power-ups, like a second chance. I can get themes. What this does is it makes gamification, sort of gamification V2. It makes it really, like I can buy a multiplier. It's not just like, hey, did you get question right or wrong and give you some points. These are actual game mechanics built into a learning experience. And so what students do is the idea is that they will be more bought in to this process if they've got these incentives, even if they don't mean a whole lot. So what is how are you in Spanish? Let's see, ¿Cómo estás? Oh, I got some more money. So look, I got $1 the first time. Now I got $3. So I've got a total of $4. Let's see if I can go and continue the streak. How many ounces are in a pound? I think it's 16. All right, I'm at $7. If I can get one more, I might be able to buy some. What does this process show? This looks like photosynthesis to me. Great. Okay, so I've got my. Who was the author of Odysseus? That was Homer, right? All right, so let's shop. We got some money. Let's go shop. Multiplier. I'm going to buy myself. Oh, I got to have $50 for that one. So let's do a money per question. I'm going to buy this one for $10. And now I will now earn or lose $10 per question. Okay, so now next time I go in, which moon is a waning crescent? 2 maybe? Oh, I lost $10. That was wrong. All right, so now, I'm in the hole. So you keep playing. So you can see that this is kind of what GimKit does. And what's great about this is that it's engaging. It gets students interacting. It's also going to be used asynchronously. So you can let students do this and participate on their own schedule, on their own time, and basically post their own scores. So just to go back here, obviously very interactive. The virtual prizes, I think I would sort of up the value here. This is like power-ups. These are real kind of game mechanics. And those of us who may not do gaming a lot, it may not sort of register like what's going on here, but it is addictive to have these kind of goals here. Now this idea of students can create their own games is really interesting. Imagine again in this jigsaw idea where students would go out, you could have students again, I'll use the business model canvas as an idea. Each student goes and generates their own quiz for an element of the business model canvas. They post a link in the discussion group, and then students get to compete with each other and see who understands elements of the business model canvas the best. So that could be super fun. And worry that it may feel too elementary schoolish. So this is going to be a common thing. A lot of these tools that are referenced here, they're all free. So free tools are often more targeted towards K through 12 environments. I would say test it. Kahoot, which we'll talk about next, has an even more elementary school feel to it, but it works great inside higher education. So it's fine to acknowledge it. It's great to ask the question, but I would definitely don't let your assumptions about how it's branded affect whether or not you try it, because in the right context, these tools can be really engaging for students. Okay, so that's GimKit. Let's talk about Kahoot next. So Kahoot is similar. It's a game. This is more used for synchronous competitions. What's going to happen is you're going to create some questions. You're going to post the questions live, and then students are going to get 4 options. They're going to see 4 options up on a board, and I'm just going to play this video so you can see what it looks like. And as people are answering, you can see the number of answers that come up. You can use it in virtual sessions. You can use it in in-person sessions. And then students, they're going to use their phone to pick the answer that they think is right. So in real time, you'll get students will get feedback, and you'll have this little competition with a leaderboard on who got the questions right and who got them wrong. Let's see if we can't see one of their leaderboards show up here. So they'll tell you who's got right and who's wrong, and they'll also have points, like individual teams or students will have points here, and so it's really fun. Yeah, it's really engaging. It gets students' attention. Let's see what the group said about it. So yeah, real-time competitive environment, gets ranking and points, and tests if students are listening and learning to what's taught in the classroom. So that's true. That's one way you can use Kahoot. I think another team here mentioned something else that was interesting. I don't have the name off the top of my head, but I thought this was really great, that it can start discussions about what makes the answer true and a good icebreaker. If an opinion question is asked, it can spark discussion. So that's where I really see the power of Kahoot. Yes, you can use it to sort of test, do students, have they read or watched some material? I think a more interesting and more engaging way to use Kahoot or any of these quizzes is to test their knowledge before you've given them some sort of resource, so that they kind of take a risk, they take a guess. I think this might be true. And if they get it wrong, now is an opportunity to spark a discussion between students who got it wrong and the students who got it right. And they can actually teach each other. So if you're looking for moments to have discussions, using these kind of formative assessment tools like Kahoot can create a great opportunity for students to discuss with one another. And again, to do that, you can leverage your chat for students to sort of warm up, and then identify people in chat to speak out and help answer questions and involve in discussions. I think it's worth describing like how we use this in our curriculum. So in exec, we have a set of customer interview cards. We have digital cards and physical cards. Our interview cards are digital ones. They take the form of a spreadsheet, and students will actually sort different questions into, like, are these good questions or are they bad questions? And then we have a Kahoot that will go and test their knowledge of these things as a group. So again, this is exactly what I'm talking about, where we have them take their best guess. They don't know the answer, whether it's good or bad, and then we use the Kahoot as a place to actually engage students in discovering the correct or incorrect answers. Okay, so if you want to take a look at that, check out the exec preview, and we can get you access to go look at that. So here's what they look like in detail. So which of these questions would help you write the best marketing material? And then we offer them a number of questions that they can pick from. The right answer happens to be, what's the hardest part about being a blank? Okay, so that's what Kahoot looks like. Let's take a look at Edpuzzle. So Edpuzzles are our third tool here. Edpuzzle is a way to turn any video into a quiz or formative assessment tool. So what I've done here, I just pulled up one of their samples.
Happy over total number of things. So in this case, 3 jelly beans would make us happy, and we.
So what they're talking about here, this is a statistics video, and each one of those dots that you saw is a question, and they're asking students, hey, what is the P of green in this statistics example here? So let me see if I can't mute this. There we go. So if I go to this next little droplet here, you'll see the next question that I'm being asked. How many trials are there? So in this case, I don't know the answer. We'll pick 3 and see what happens. Looks like that was wrong. The answer was 2. So it's a way for you to assign a video to students and actually quickly measure whether or not they watched it. Also could be a really interesting way, like I mentioned, to have them guess. Basically, put in a question before the answer is revealed to them to ask them to sort of reflect on it and think, okay, what do you think the right answer is going to be here? And then that could inspire some sort of thought as opposed to just regurgitation. So there's one other way that I'll talk about how to potentially use this tool later on. But that's what Edpuzzle is. And the nice thing about this is you don't have to create your own videos. You can use someone else's videos to create these tools. Okay, next up, let's talk about Notely. So Notely is basically it's a virtual Post-it note board where you and your students can get together and put together Post-its, and you can build a collaborative Post-it note wall. So this is great for leveraging the think, pair, share discussions that we talked about. So I mentioned that we use in our fear, curiosity, and failure lesson plan, this one right here, we have students brainstorm what are their biggest fears and curiosities about life after they graduate from school. They write them down individually on Post-it notes, be it digital or physical, and then we have them share them. We have them partner up with other folks during class, and then once they've had the opportunity to pair, then they share them with the rest of the class, and then the instructor takes those and builds out these cool problem clouds. So what that can look like, this is just a small example of some pairing of non-student problems, but you get the idea that we basically take these different Post-it notes and start building them around different themes that come up. And then the instructor takes these themes and uses those as touch points for the syllabus, introducing the syllabus. So this is the way the syllabus gets introduced. Instead of just rattling off, here's a bunch of assignments, we make entrepreneurship relevant for students by helping them understand that even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, these skills that you're going to learn in this class are going to help resolve the fears and curiosities that you have. So this is a great way to leverage these sort of tools and to have some discussion, because obviously, you know, students put these Post-it notes up and they share them. You get to invite them to expand on them and get students engaged. All right, so that is Notely. Let's talk about MindMeister next. So MindMeister is a mind mapping tool. All right, so it's a tool that you can collect a bunch of information, organize it, and share it out. So here's an example of what it looks like in practice. Let's take a look at what some of our teammates said about it. So it takes mind mapping to the next level, perfect for project-based learning, helps students visualize and organize their thoughts, and it can be helpful in answering questions, allowing participants to ask questions, combine topics. Yeah, so what's really great about this technique is you can use this divide and conquer, this jigsaw approach, where each pair or team of students has some topic they're covering on, and then they write up some notes here, and then all students leave with an organized collection of information about something. So you could do this with a shared Google Doc. The problem is that students could end up writing over each other. So with a tool like MindMeister, you can do this collaborative mind mapping a little easier. So that's another tool. Again, when you do these jigsaws and students research things on their own, then once they write them up here, you can invite them to have a discussion and teach you about whatever it is that they learned about. So you can imagine 9 nodes, one for each element of the business model canvas, and then have them teach those to the rest of the class. Okay, so that's MindMeister. Mural. Mural is let's see what our teammates thought about it. It's a way to teach design thinking philosophy using a digital whiteboard. It also has mind mapping capabilities. So you'll see that I've kind of grouped a lot of these together. So Noatly, MindMeister, and Mural, they're all sort of a real-time collaboration tool. So you may not need to use all three of them. You might find one that's particularly useful for you. So in this case, there's actually a lot you can do with this. So it can do the functionality of Noatly. It can do the functionality of MindMeister. It can also do some other like shared whiteboard things. So one example of a place you can use it is for these. They have these built-in templates that you can use, and students can click and drag around post-it notes. We do something like this with our solution ideation. So we have students in the exec curriculum, we have them brainstorm a number of different solutions to problems that they have validated through their customer interviews. So we don't have to use Mural for this. Instead, we use the worksheets that we create that are part of our curriculum. So every student gets their own copy of these worksheets, and we've created our own kind of post-it notes here. But basically, we have students come up with and brainstorm. We do the convergent divergent process where we say, hey, come up with potential solutions to the problem that you solved. Now come up with solutions that if you could build if you had an infinite amount of money. And then based on those ideas, come up with something that's reasonable, inspired by this infinite amount of money solutions. Do the process again. Now, how would you solve this problem if you had no money at all? And what solutions would you come up with? And then a couple others, illegal, impossible solutions. If you had the best, smartest people working for you, what could you build? So this is a way you could do the similar sort of thing with Mural. We just happen to do it with students getting their own exercises and their own activities that they can take with them after the course is over. So that's the solution ideation exercise, and that's Mural. Again, you can take a look and get a preview of exec if you want to see what that looks like and consider using that in your class. Okay, so with that in mind, let's move on to video discussions and talk about Flipgrid and Loom. So Flipgrid is really interesting. Flipgrid is like our discussion groups, so like this discussion group here where we have people commenting, except everything is a video. So here your students are recording videos, and again this is very much branded for a younger audience, but it can work with, I know there are several schools who use this in higher education. And yeah, so here's an example of it working with higher education folks. And it basically makes it easy for people to record their discussions. They get to have like funny filters and hats and all this kind of stuff. So if you're looking for discussions, this is literally discussions. This is straight up video-based discussion groups and forums. Could be a really interesting place to play around with and get people talking, especially if you're running an async class or if you're running an exclusively online class, a fun way for people to get to introduce each other and make connections with each other. So I think this is an awesome tool to experiment with in the fall if you happen to be in an online class. Loom. Okay, Loom is another amazing tool. We use it all the time. As you can see in just their demo here, it makes it super easy for your students to simultaneously capture their screen and their webcam at the same time. It's a really easy to install plugin for Chrome. We have all of our students, so we literally have thousands of students who are using this. It's free. Let me show you what it looks like. So our students will produce these submission videos for us. So we walk students through a number of exercises. They'll produce a number of exercises like we saw here, the solution ideation exercise. And those will become part of a slide deck that they produce as part of their submission. So we have them fill out interviewing action plans, assessing their interviews, writing up. This is just one submission that's really focused on customer interviews. They do transcripts of their interviews, overviews of their customer interviews, a whole bunch of cool stuff that they've gone and done. And now as part of their submission process, they're going to record a video overviewing those things. And we have them use Loom to do that. So we teach them how to do that. We also teach them how to analyze the results of their latest experiments so that they can tell us that every iteration, every submission, they create a new version of their business model canvas. So this is their second iteration of their business model canvas. And then they write up an iteration analysis, what has changed. So originally we believed that this was the problem, this was the assumption. To verify that we did, here's the experiment we ran, here's what we learned as a result, and therefore here's what we're going to do going forward. So these are all part of the submissions, as well as some reflections, basically to assess, do you understand the steps that you've taken as an entrepreneur, and do you understand why an entrepreneur would take those steps? So do you understand like the customer discovery process? That's for this particular submission. And do you understand why an entrepreneur would take those steps? Then we teach them how to exactly record a video. So we give them a lot of structure. It should be 2 minutes and 30 seconds or less. You should spend 15 seconds on this, 15 seconds on this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We teach them how to record, use the Loom video, and then they produce their actual video. And then when they turn it in, our instructors get pages like this. So we're now in Canvas. Virtually every learning management system has some system like this. And then you can actually watch their video. You can play it back sped up or in the default speed, so you can play it back a little faster if you want. And then you can see recording, you can see the webcam and their slides all at the same time. In addition, you also get the embedded copy of their slides here, so you can go through and you can see in detail what your students have written up. In this case, I haven't actually filled out my my submission, so don't tell anybody, but you can see all of your students' work. And then of course we have rubrics in here as well that are very quick, so you just like click on, is it full credit for video, partial credit for the business model Canvas, so you can kind of fly through here and really quickly just bang, bang, bang. It takes about as long as it takes to listen to the video in 2 minutes, and this is 1 minute and 30 seconds, to kind of go through and just knock these out. So anyway, Loom is a fantastic tool for really gauging how well your students understand the concept, and then so that you can give them some assessment and some feedback on that. And then you can use these tools just like you would with Flipgrid. So if you wanted to use Loom and combine that with your learning management systems discussion board, you can basically recreate Flipgrid's functionality, but just make it based on maybe some presentations that your students are doing. So while Flipgrid is great for recording from a phone and doing sort of selfie videos, Loom plus your school's discussion functionality can have these sort of screen share based, presentation based interactions and discussions. Okay, so that's a look at Flipgrid and Loom. Again, if you want to see more submission details and how we tackle this, and could be interesting to use in your class, including these rubrics, check out the exact preview. All right, finally, Pear Deck and Nearpod. So these are interactive lecture functionality. Well, I should also mention that I'm not going through each. When you sort of, if you want to use the discussion boards to point out things from each of your students that they've submitted, sometimes you won't have different pieces because of some technical challenges we have. Not every person reported something back, so I'm just sort of filling in the blanks. But what we've got here, so for Pear Deck, I should also mention that these highlights, this is another tool. It's not in one of our 10, but it's just a Chrome extension called Super Highlighter. And what it makes it easy to do is I can just go through ahead of time anything I want to comment on. I just select it, right click, super simple highlighter, and I pick my color, and now I can go back to them and I can quickly see, oh, this is really what I wanted to speak to. So if you're going to do this style of video where you use your students' discussions as the basis, then this is a great tool to use, just so that as you're going through the discussions, you know what to speak to. So in this case, Pear Deck helps students use helps the instructors actually use live slide presentation tools with Google Slides and PowerPoint to create interactive surveys and game-like questions. It creates an engaging experience, and the instructor can see individual students' participation. So I think of Pear Deck as kind of like a combination of many of the tools we've seen today, but kind of embedded in your presentation itself. So let's take a look. There's 6 different types of tools. So let's go to the back here. So the first is that you can ask students, like, just for a number, like, hey, give me an assessment. What's the optimal price point for this? And it will put it on a range for you. You can ask them questions and it will show up for students. So yeah, so basically quiz style stuff, soliciting input. You can show students a website that they can go and explore and then report back. It looks like you've got some map functionality in here as well. You've got some drawing functionality where you can put up something and then students can use a collaborative whiteboard, and you can share out students' designs. And of course you have multiple choice questions as well. So yeah, depending on the scenario, you might find that if you're doing a fairly involved session and you kind of want one all-in-one tool, Pear Deck might be great. Instead of having to use Mural plus Kahoot, you could use just one tool like this one, and it automatically integrates with your presentation software. All right, so the other one is Nearpod. Nearpod is very similar. It helps you create presentations and slides that integrate different components. They happen to have some discussion functionality, some quiz functionality, and what they call bell ringer. These are just more interactive exercises. It's similar in nature to Nearpod, but this one, where most of the, let's just take a look at what this looks like. Most of the tools that I've described, again, they're marketed for K through 12, but you can use them in higher education. These ones, Nearpods, oftentimes are branded pretty strongly in terms of the of K through 12. So you get a very kind of cartoony experience. This one might be a little bit harder to try. So I might be inclined to try Pear Deck before Nearpod, but both of them could be options, and you may be able to go and change it based on the look and feel that you want to create. Actually, I think they have some flexibility here. It's just maybe their default scenario is branded for those younger audiences. Okay, so the last thing that I want to mention, I said, oh, here, let's just go take a look. So here's an Nearpod presentation that is a little more professionally branded. So I haven't played with this one in detail, and it looks like you can do, so think, pair, share, look at that. Someone else is using one of these great techniques. Okay, so let's write open-ended question. So clearly you can use it in a more professional way. It's just their default templates maybe are branded for a little younger. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to go back to this Edpuzzle piece, because imagine you create one of these videos for your students summarizing a discussion topic that they had. And we actually do this. In the async online version of this exercise, Launching is Easy, Selling is Hard, we do precisely this, where we have students work in what we call reflection groups to come up with their reasoning, their logic behind why people spend far more money on lottery tickets than they're actually worth. And it has to do with the emotional value. So here's the purchase the lottery ticket. So we have them, let me go see if I can find this section here. Post-it reflections. In the lottery ticket game, decide what people want. So we have them get together in these async breakout rooms, reflection groups we call them, and they decide why people spend more money on lottery tickets than they're worth. It's a little more intricate, and if you were in the session, you know about the dime versus the lottery ticket, but I won't get into that here. And then we have them post their answers to the discussion group. And then we determine the winner, which team gets the lottery ticket, based on who provides the most comprehensive response to the question. And we record a video just like this, where we go and we use their responses as the basis to actually summarize the main talking points and to highlight any misconceptions that may have come up. So highly recommend you do that. If you want to combine it with something like Edpuzzle, where you record a video and then you check for your students and really assess their understanding of the things that you talked about during the video, that can be another interesting way to make sure that they are participating in this kind of discussion. They posted something online, now you're going to write a summary about it, and then they're gonna watch this video, and then they'll be prepared for any sync discussions that you might have about it. All right, so that is my summary of top 10 tools for increasing engagement in discussions online. Again, these aren't actually required. The techniques that we talked about during the session, you can do them without these tools, but these tools are really interesting things to try. If you'd like to see how any of these work, again, check out Exec. We've got this built out for online, async, online sync, and in-person exercises, all ready for you in fall. Have a good one.